So let's put ourselves in the room 3 days before they watch their beloved die. They stand at the cross, or maybe they couldn't even stand there. Maybe they watched from a distance, or maybe some of them ran. And now there's women that are saying he's alive, and they don't know what to do with that either. So they pulled the door shut. They bolt it. Maybe someone has their back against the wall. Maybe there's someone staring at their hands. Maybe the hands that touched him, that shared bread with him, as if that would help anything now. Maybe there's silence in that room for hours at a time. Disbelief. Outside, the city's going on about its business. Rome is being Rome. The market is open. The temple authorities who handed over Jesus are still in their positions, still in power. They're still watching. I would suggest to you, these are not paranoid fears. These are men and women who watched their teacher get arrested, who was tried and executed in less than 24 hours. They know how quickly things like that can happen. And the future, which seemed a little more than a week ago, luminous, hopeful, it's just now a blank wall. John writes that they were hiding for fear of the Jews, the religious and political power brokers who had orchestrated Jesus' execution and saw his movement as a threat to their control. Now, sometimes this text has been used to justify hate, so I want to be very clear that John's gospel was written in a Jewish community about Jewish people by a Jewish author. The disciples hiding were themselves Jewish. So this is not a story about a people in general, as it has sometimes been misstated. It's a story about power, and about what power does to ordinary people who get in its way. And the disciples were just ordinary people, fishermen, a tax collector, women who had funded the whole operation out of their own resources, not revolutionaries, not heroes, just people who had followed someone extraordinary and didn't know what comes next. Instead of following their beloved Jesus, telling people about God's kingdom, healing the sick, doing the things that they had watched him do, like sometimes we cut past that part. We think, oh, they've done so much, but in this moment, there's a certain paralysis about them. Questions fill their heads, like, what does it mean for their mission that he didn't save himself? What does it mean that this man of peace was tried, convicted, and executed? Is God really with us? Does God actually care? Does he have any power? Maybe does God exist? As Thomas would make plain later, he would say it's going to take a miracle, something real and tangible, to convince him to hope again. And yet the door is still bolted. The disciples could not yet see that the world had been radically changed that week. Not even locked doors or thick walls could contain the good that was coming. Without knocking, without warning, without waiting for them to be ready, Jesus enters the room. He doesn't even address the locked door. He doesn't say, I told you so, or where were you, or what is up with this? Why are you guys in a locked room? He doesn't come with a plan or a speech. And what I find so remarkable about this story is not that the disciples had fears and doubts, but it's that Christ came through them. Not waiting for them to be ready, not standing at the door, knocking politely until they were ready with the courage to open it, not shaming them for locking it in the first place. He came to them gently, without anger, with the repeated assurance that he was with them. He shows them his wounds, his hands, his side, peace be with you. And he repeats it again, not because they didn't hear it the first time, but because he knows how hard it is to receive that news. Because for peace, for people who have just watched the worst happen, it doesn't arrive like sunlight. It doesn't arrive easy It arrives with with a hand on a shoulder in the dark. And then there's Thomas. Thomas who wasn't there the first time. Thomas who said, unless I see the nail marks, unless I put my hand to his side, I will not believe. Thomas is not the villain of the story. I think Thomas has gotten a bad name in history. He's the one who needed to be met in his exact doubt, not with a general argument, not with a philosophical treaty, but not with peer pressure from others, but with the wounds. This is real. I came back for you specifically. Peace was with them, not judgment, not disappointment. Peace was with them, not against them, not preached at them, but present in their locked rooms. And peace was with them, not somewhere else, not descending on the earthly thrones of power, but present in a hiding place with ordinary folks who had no idea what came next. And if they were ever going to be coaxed from the relative safety of that locked room, get about the business of telling the world that peace was with us, they were going to need to believe it themselves first. I love the most complete confession in all of John's gospel, spoken by what everyone knows as the doubter, in a room where everyone had locked the door. My God, my Lord. That's what peace coming through looks like. When Christ walks through that door, he doesn't just comfort the disciples, he commissions them. He breathes his Spirit on them, and he gives them a mission. As the Father sent me, so I send you. Because the worst thing that can happen is if those followers of Jesus stay hidden, keeping those stories to themselves. And Christ coming not once, but twice, and then again for Thomas, did what it was meant to do. It got them out of that room and into the streets and around dinner tables, sharing everything they had experienced. We owe our faith today to this moment. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I can relate to the fear and the doubt of the disciples. Maybe I'm not alone. Today we're bombarded with messages that are anything but peace. Studies suggest that in the first 60 minutes of our day, we consume more images and messages of stories of violence than our grandparents read in an entire year. And that's saying a lot because our grandparents, many of them went through 2 world wars. In the first 60 minutes of our day, we hear more messages about not peace than anything else. And that's saying something. We've built very sophisticated locked rooms because fear is a powerful narcotic. Algorithms designed to keep us afraid because fear keeps us engaged. Echo chambers that curate us away from the peace that is actually happening right around us. We can't see it because we only let in what confirms the fear, and honestly, those who are hungry for power can use it to achieve their goals. I'm not suggesting we stay uninformed or put our heads in the sand or disengage from the world. That would be a locked door too. But my point is this. Sometimes we're so bombarded with the problems of the world that we can become blind to the peace that sits with us in this very moment. In a world that's already being transformed by a God who loves all people. And let me be clear, this is not a partisan problem, it's not a political problem, it's a deeply human problem that leaves us at odds with one another and actually lets us avoid actually solving the problems of our day and working together. But folks, peace is all around us. Can you see it? Right now, a nurse is holding the hand of a hospice patient and comforting them on their last day. And a mother is holding a baby who's new. That hospice patient is thinking more about their family than their own pain. Like I think I read Cliff said in the obituary. And on the street, a bus driver is stopping for a lost commuter, and that commuter is starting a new job in a new city, overcoming their fear to feed their family. And that family is grateful for their new city, and they're sharing their gifts of art and culture. And birds fly by to tuck grasses into nests, and kids are saying thank you to their teacher after an especially hard day, and that teacher's battling through exhaustion to show up for those kids who sometimes don't yet see their worth. And there are people living with their own wounds, their own stories of terrible pain, who are helping friends find an ambulance, or find a meeting, or find a reason to live again. And there are ambulance drivers waiting through their own grief and their own hopelessness to show up, even knowing that the challenges will remain tomorrow. And then there are people in churches and art studios and basketball courts and offices and diners who are feeding one another in body, mind, and soul. And overhead, there's teammates crossing international borders to fly around to the dark side of the moon to remind us that our earth is a fragile, glorious gift for all of humanity. And all over, people are seeking a way across religious differences, across cultural differences, across political differences to live together in an imperfect world. And this is just a small sampling of what I saw this week. And I can imagine you've seen so much more. Think about standing in interfaith circles where Christians and Jews and Muslims and people of many traditions sat down together to work to stop violence, to tell the stories that the people of the world had forgotten, to bear witness to justice, not because all the theology was resolved, but because the people needed witnesses. And we showed up, some of us in Jesus' name, for the cause of peace. I've been part of communities where Christ followers from Ghana and France, Scotland and England and Ireland and Trinidad and Jamaica and Russia and Ukraine and Iran and Egypt gathered around at the same table, nation, tongues, and tribes. Not perfect, not always agreeing, from wildly different political perspectives, but choosing the presence of Christ as the thing larger than all of it, and finding in that room with them a peace that just makes no sense. It's all around us. I've watched the miracle that happens when people step past their own convictions and find that sliver of common ground and start from there. Families locked in bitter disputes, young men and women locked in harsh insecurities, churches locked in buildings that feel safer than the communities they serve. And if I really stop and think about it, in these spaces, I have borne witness to the beauty of the glory of God, and I bet you have too. Think about it for a moment. Just close your eyes for a second. What peace have you witnessed this week? What goodness have you witnessed? As Christians, we train our eyes to see peace so that we can bear witness to the way a whisper from the Spirit cuts through fear and reminds us that the eyes looking back at us are not enemies. We bear witness to that miracle that happens when people get out of their comfort zones and past their own convictions to find something to agree on, something to work toward, something worth getting out of the locked room. This becomes our call. Our mission together is to amplify the messages of peace and drown out the overwhelming despair. To get out of our echo chambers and to get into our communities, experiencing all the peace we know is out there. Because we have faith that the Spirit of Christ is already there ahead of us. I'm going to close with this advice that Father Ronald Rolheiser gave. He was talking about his brush with death. He had 3 cancer diagnoses, and this one was terminal. And at the end of his life, he said this: "We forget that Jesus also lived. He knew how to live and not just carry his cross." And he says, for us today, At the first stage of a person's life, the struggle is to get your life together. And at the second stage, it's how to give your life away. So towards the end, you're trying to think about your kids and the next generation. But then we all have to exit the planet. And so the last struggle is how to give your death away. And he suggested this, that the greatest gift we can leave with the world is the gift of peace. Peace in our families, peace to our children, peace to those around us, peace to our neighbors, peace to our churches. When we tell the hope we see to people we come to know and love and relationships powered by the Spirit, something shifts in this world. The kingdom breaks through the fog of doom scrolling, and suddenly we see our place. We're no longer overwhelmed. We're no longer locked away. We lay down our weapons. We look up because what the world says is weak, we know there is power, just like the song we sang earlier. And when we do that, we become outposts, lighting up a dark sky. I've seen the peace that's with you here, Knox, as I've watched your services through a narrow vision of just this stage. I can see it in the announcements, how you share Christ's love with open hearts and open doors. I've seen it in how you care for each other and celebrate each other. I felt it as you warmly greeted John and I yesterday, for those that we met. I'm really glad to be in this room, not locked away, but confident of what Christ is, that he's with us, and that he is peace. Peace is with you, Knox. Not judgment, not disappointment, not striving for perfection. Peace is with you, not against you, not there to hurt you, not thrown at you. Peace is with you, not somewhere with a more deserving crowd who's got better plans or more perfect spaces. Peace has a name, and it is Jesus. And peace sits on a throne that does not end, that has not ended, that still cares about this world, even though we don't know what it looks like next. And peace has chosen you to be his earthly body, bearing his message to get people out of locked rooms. I don't know what Christ's invitation looks like for you, Knox, what locked rooms you might be in, but I'm hoping we can find out together in the power of the Spirit of Christ, him going before us, him coaxing us out of our fears and our doubts, him never leaving us. Thanks be to God.